One of the hardest things you may ever have to do in healthcare is realize you might need another opinion. And it isn't because you want conflict or you think your doctor is incompetent, but listen, it's because something inside of you still feels unresolved. And maybe your symptoms are continuing. The explanation doesn't fully make sense. The treatment isn't helping, or deep down, you still feel uncertain. And that creates a very uncomfortable emotional tension because now you're stuck between two fears. What if something's being missed? And what if asking more questions damages the relationship? So instead of seeking clarity, you stay silent, you delay, you second guess yourself, you minimize your concerns, or you quietly seek another opinion while feeling guilty the entire time. Me. And healthcare becomes emotionally complicated because no one teaches you how to seek a second opinion respectfully. You love trying to navigate your trust, the uncertainty, fear, loyalty, communication, and self advocacy all at once. So today I'm talking about why second opinions feel emotionally difficult, why you may avoid them, what healthy self advocacy actually looks like, and how to seek another opinion without creating unnecessary conflict when a second opinion genuinely makes sense, and how to protect both clarity and relationships inside healthcare. Because seeking more understanding does not automatically mean betrayal. Because remember, better clarity leads to better decisions. So most people think second opinions are purely medical decisions. They're not. They're also emotional because healthcare relationships are deeply personal. Because when someone has cared for you, listened to you, treated you, reassured you, and supported you through difficult moments, it's natural to feel emotionally connected to that relationship. So the idea of seeking another opinion can suddenly feel like disloyalty, distrust, rejection, confrontation, or criticism, even when that's not your intention at all. And you may start worrying, oh my goodness, will they be offended? Will this damage the relationship? Will they stop taking me seriously? Will they think I don't trust them? Am I overreacting? Oh my gosh, am I difficult? And that emotional pressure just keeps many of us stuck, especially if you already struggle with advocating for yourself or asking questions or even feeling like you're too much inside healthcare environments. And healthcare power dynamics intensify this because many of us still subconsciously view healthcare providers as unquestionable authorities, gatekeepers, or someone you should not challenge. So even when considering another perspective can feel intimidating, but here's something important to understand. Seeking another opinion is actually part of healthcare, especially when you have complex conditions, symptoms persist, surgery is being considered, your diagnoses remain unclear, or your outcomes are uncertain. Because medicine is nuanced and providers can disagree, right? Because, listen, you may mistakenly assume that if two doctors disagree, then one must be wrong. But healthcare involves interpretation, probabilities, judgment calls, evolving evidence, and incomplete information. And different providers sometimes see different things. That's reality. It's like opinions. We all got one, all right? The reason you may avoid a second opinion is emotional exhaustion because healthcare is already overwhelming, right? You're already feeling stressed, fatigued, emotionally drained, financially burdened, physically uncomfortable, or just exhausted from repeating your story over and over again, all right? So the thought of finding another provider, gathering records, retelling everything, explaining timelines again, or just emotionally reopening uncertainty can totally feel unbearable, okay? So sometimes you just settle into, hmm, I just don't have the energy, right? Or other times, listen, you may fear that you're appearing disrespectful, especially if you genuinely like your provider. You may think, you know what, this doctor has been kind, this doctor has helped me, and I don't want them to think that I'm questioning them or just challenging their authority or what they shared. You know what? Seeking more clarity is not disrespect. And healthy providers understand that. And another reason you may avoid second opinions is the fear of hearing something worse. I totally get that. Because this is a crucial part right here because sometimes uncertainty feels safer than possibility. And as long as no new opinion exists, then part of you can still hope that maybe this isn't serious and maybe whatever's going on with me will resolve itself, or you know what, maybe I'm overthinking. Another evaluation risks changing that emotional equilibrium. So avoidance becomes emotionally protective. And then there's social pressure, right? Family members over here saying, you already saw a doctor. You're overthinking. Listen, stop going to Dr. Google. You're making yourself anxious. And so now you begin doubting yourself again, especially if these symptoms are fluctuating, your labs appear normal, or your answers remain unclear. So what happens? You suppress your instincts that you should continue exploring thoughtfully. And this is where the confusion becomes dangerous because there's a difference between panic-driven doctor shopping and thoughtful second opinions. They're not the same thing. Okay, so what does a healthy second opinion look like? Okay, so let's normalize something. A healthy second opinion is not about trying to catch your doctor being wrong or proving someone incompetent or creating confrontation. It's about gathering more understanding, period. And the healthiest mindset entering a second opinion is curiosity. It's not combat. Because when you approach second opinions emotionally activated, you may unintentionally turn to the provider, this new provider, into a referee or a validator or someone expected to take sides, right? And that usually creates worse communication overall instead of an approach to the conversation like this. Listen, I'm just trying to better understand my situation. I value another perspective. I want to make sure that I'm making the most informed decision possible. This creates collaboration instead of emotional escalation. And another important point, a second opinion should not begin with, well, my last doctor was terrible, even if there is frustration, okay? Because emotional venting can accidentally bias the conversation, distort objectivity, or shift focus away from your actual health concerns. So let's just stick to the symptoms, the timelines, tests, the treatments tried, the outcomes, and any remaining questions. Because clarity matters. And remember, good providers are usually not threatened by thoughtful second opinions. In fact, a healthy provider may actually encourage them, especially when it comes to surgeries, cancer care, autoimmune conditions, neurological conditions, chronic unresolved symptoms, or high risk treatments. Because you know what? Medicine works best when you feel informed and confident. So, how do you seek a second opinion without burning any bridges? Okay. Communication, right? Because, we freeze with that, all right? We freeze emotionally because you do not need to announce, I don't trust you. That isn't necessary. You keep that stuff to yourself anyways, because healthy communication actually, could sound like, I feel more comfortable gathering another perspective, or I want to make sure I fully understand my options, or this is a big decision and I value additional input, or I'm still trying to process everything, especially me, that's me, or I like another set of eyes on that. That's respectful. That's clear. And that's collaborative because you're not accusing anyone by wanting more clarity. And something else matters deeply here, your tone, right? Because people often underestimate how emotionally charged communication affects healthcare relationships. So if these conversations become accusatory or hostile, defensive, or even emotionally active, that trust starts to deteriorate quickly. But a calm, grounded communication foundation often preserves the relationship beautifully. And another important strategy, request those records, request them professionally, not emotionally. So avoid, well, I need my records because nobody's helping me. Instead, I like copies of my records for continuity of care. Simple, professional, friendly, and because second opinions are normal healthcare behaviors, okay? And then another thing to consider, you do not owe lengthy emotional explanations. Just no, it's not necessary. Because some people over explain because they feel guilty, but you don't need permission to better understand your health. You're allowed to seek additional expertise. Now, there are situations where second opinions become especially valuable. And, I've mentioned these before when it comes to surgeries, invasive procedures, lifelong medication decisions, rare diagnoses, unclear diagnoses, or persistent symptoms without answers, cancer treatment plans, neurological concerns, autoimmune diseases and conditions, chronic pain, or when treatment simply is not helping. Okay. And another major signal when communication itself feels consistently unclear, because not every poor experience means poor medical care. But if you're repeatedly leaving these healthcare systems feeling confused or dismissed, rushed, unheard, or uncertain, that matters too, because understanding impacts outcomes. Okay. Now, another thing, second opinions are especially important when fear is driving urgency. Emotionally overwhelmed patients often struggle to process the risks, the benefits, the probabilities, the alternatives, and timelines clearly. Most perspective or more perspective can create more grounded decisions. And importantly, sometimes a second opinion confirms the original recommendation completely. That still has value because reassurance matters too, and confidence matters, and clarity matters. And so now let's jump into the difference between advocacy and distrust. All right. I think one of the biggest misconceptions in healthcare is believing you must either blindly trust everything or distrust everything. But healthy healthcare kind of lives in the middle because you're allowed to ask questions, you're allowed to seek clarity and gather information, explore your options, and lastly, advocate for yourself without assuming everyone is against you. And I just want to be clear that that distinction matters deeply because fear-driven healthcare behavior can create hypervigilance and chronic anxiety. Endless researching those hot dates with Dr. Google, fragmented care, and emotional exhaustion. But passive healthcare behavior creates different risks, such as avoidance, delayed care, silence, and unresolved uncertainty. Healthcare advocacy looks balanced. It's curious, it's grounded, it's thoughtful, it's collaborative, and confidence in healthcare does not come from controlling everything. It comes from understanding enough to participate meaningfully in decisions. And you know what? This is one of the reasons that I built Alvora.health, because so many of us seek second opinions, not because we want conflict, but we don't fully understand what's happening. You leave these appointments carrying uncertainty, confusion, unanswered questions, emotional overwhelm, and fragmented understanding. And then you're expected to make these healthcare decisions afterwards, right? But Alvora.health helps bridge that gap because it helps you better understand your health information. It helps you organize your thoughts. It helps you prepare better questions, understand your lab results more clearly, and participate more confidently in healthcare conversations, okay? Because you deserve more than rushed explanations and emotional confusion. You deserve clarity because better clarity leads to better understanding. So, if you want help understanding your healthcare information more clearly, download my free Clear Lab guide below because it'll help you to better understand common labs. It's 12 common labs, and it'll help you ask more informed questions, and it'll help you feel more confident navigating your healthcare conversations. Until next time.